What's going on, guys? Jay's Two Cents here, or otherwise known as Entitled White Guy. I had planned on doing a video today about. I was going to put together a motivational workout video that I was hoping was going to fire some people up and get some people motivated to do something with their lives and their bodies and whatnot. But my Twitter is now exploding because of the fact that I decided to read some of the comments over here on, and I'm leaving it on just for the sake of dramatic effect, I guess, the dinging and stuff. So on one of my on my Xbox destruction video over on the Tech channel, somebody made a comment to me that I was lucky because of the fact that I'm white. And because I'm white, that I very unlikely had to overcome any sort of trials or poverty. That just really, really pissed me off because I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of history and information about me. This has been a deep vlog channel, and pretty much that couldn't be farther from the truth. We moved to Southern California when I was 1, and I've been living in the same area since I was 3. I've grown up here. I'm a product of this neighborhood. But now let me tell you a little bit about this neighborhood. Where I live in Southern California is very, very, very. In fact, I live on the border of Rialto and San Bernardino in the Inland Empire, 60 miles east of Los Angeles. Now, a lot of people think Los Angeles is a rough place to live. Oh, Los Angeles is rough, gangs and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? The Inland Empire, and San Bernardino specifically, is much more rough to live in than Los Angeles. The gangs here are a lot more prevalent. There is a lot less police. San Bernardino just last year filed for bankruptcy. They've been laying off cops. They've been laying off firefighters. There's over 15% unemployment rate here. This town used to be a booming town, but it used to be a military-based town right in the center of San Bernardino, California. If you guys go into maps.google.com and type in San Bernardino, Bernardino, you'll see that there's an airport right in the middle of the city. Well, that airport used to be known as Norton Air Force Base, and when in the 90s, when Department of Defense backs are downsized, they closed that military base. And with that, thousands and thousands of jobs were lost. Thousands of businesses went out of business. Many, many, many people lost their homes. There's entire ghost communities. By that, there are empty homes, just blocks and blocks and blocks of empty homes. Nobody living in them. They're falling apart in San Bernardino because the financial infrastructure of the city just collapsed. And it never recovered. Rialto is a very predominantly African American and Latino area. Rialto is probably more predominantly African American than Latino. Fontana, which is just west of here, is predominantly Hispanic. San Bernardino is also predominantly, I'd say, I think it's about 50-50 between the blacks and the Hispanics. Redlands, which happens to be where I work, is 22 miles east of here, and it is predominantly white. And I'm going to get back to the reasons why I'm telling you the geographic location of the different ethnicities a little bit later in the story. Now, my upbringing. My parents have been on both ends of the income spectrum. There were times my dad was bringing home $20,000 a month. There were times that my dad could not put food on the table, and we had to take food from the church for my sister and I to be able to eat when my parents didn't have anything to eat. There were times I watched my dad work 2, 3, 4 days straight, sometimes without sleep, just to try and put a little bit of food on the table and just to make ends meet. Well, guess what? My freshman year in high school, we lost our house. And my parents had horrible credit because of the fact that they were self-employed and lost everything. They lost everything. So we move into the house that I'm actually in right now because I took over this house 2 years ago from my parents, by the way. And this neighborhood that I'm in right now is a nicer neighborhood in the community, but it's one of the few and far in between. The other house I lived in had gangbangers that lived right across the street. There were drive-by shootings. They were outside doing drugs, outside drinking. I lived right next to an elementary school, right next to a middle school, and right on the corner, there were regular fights in my front yard because people would come off campus to fight in the front yard. I was beat up. I was jumped. There was one time I was 8 years old, and I got beat up by, I think it was 3 or 4 African American males, easily double my age. I was just down the street, and they thought I had money. I don't know, maybe because I was white. I don't know, and they beat the shit out of me. And one time, my sister and I and her friend, we were at the elementary school that wasn't far from our house at the time, and a group of about 20 or 25. At the time, if I had to guess how old they were, I'd say middle school, high school. I was probably 10. At the time, maybe 20 or 25 group of kids came over and again physically assaulted us. And at one point, I think that there were 3 or 4 guys. I was like thrown to the ground. And they were kicking and punching, and it just, that's what I grew up with. And this guy's going to make this comment saying that I've never had to deal with poverty because I'm a white male. Listen, I've lost our house. My parents couldn't put food on the table. I had to help do work at the church to get food for our family. I had to watch my parents work day in and day out to make just no money for the simple fact that we needed food. I lived the life where I got to, at times, have all the nice things. And I've had all of those nice things at some point taken away because ups and downs, self-employment, economy, I get it, okay? Nothing has been handed to me. In fact, if anything, I feel like in the community that I live in, sometimes I feel like people look at me as they don't like me because I'm white. And I know that I'm not going to start a racial debate here. I have very good friends that are African American. My friend Nick, you guys have seen him here. He's African American, and he's actually mixed. I think he's African American, and sorry Nick, I don't know what else you are, but I know you're a mutt, just like I'm a European mutt. I've got French and German and Indian and all sorts of other things in me. But I am so sick of the fact that people will assume that because I'm a white guy, that I've got everything I've gotten simply because of the fact that I am a white guy. But you know what? I feel like sometimes I go outside and I get dirty looks just for the simple fact that I am white in a predominantly non-white area. And that's just the way it is. I deal with it. I don't even know where to start with this. But I understand that he could be going off a statistic. And statistically speaking, yes, white males have certainly had it good. But if you're going to profile me or you're going to throw me into a box because of the fact that I've got a certain color skin or a certain color eye or whatever, you know, there's other people in history who've done that. Hitler, Stalin, others, I'm sure. But I'm so livid about this right now. I don't even know where to start. My Twitter's been exploding, and even though I said I'm going offline, I've been reading your tweets, and they are blowing up. I mean, just since starting this, these are the tweets that you guys have sent me, and a lot of these are about, are people stating that they're white and they've had a hard upbringing, or I even had one person message me and already tell me that he's black and he's had a very easy life. You know what? I don't give a shit what color you are. I don't give a fuck where you grew up or what. I don't care. I do not care. What I care about is the fact that you're an honest person, you work for the things that you have, and you're grateful for the things that you do have, and you give back a little bit of something to everyone else around you. Because if you're just sitting there take, then yeah, you're going to be a selfish person. But I really couldn't care less about a person's color. And I'm not going to look at someone and say, oh, well, you're extremely smart because you're Asian, or, you're really good at mowing lawns because you're Hispanic. That's racial profiling. It's absolutely wrong. It is stupid on every single level. When I was growing up, in elementary school, there used to be a group of friends that I hung out with, and we looked like a poster for a trip around the world. My my two best friends, these are the names that you never forget, and we're going back to elementary school here. Paul was Cambodian, Nathan was Hispanic, Timothy was black, John was white, I was white. There was an Indian fella. I can't remember his name. And by Indian, I mean like India, not Native American. And we did everything together. And people used to actually make fun of us because we weren't hanging out with the white kids that were over there, or Timothy wasn't with the black guys that were over there. And it's sad to say that those groups in the area that I live in, I think, are formed for the very sake of survival. And yeah, there are definitely harder places to live in the world. I am very, very aware of that. But guess what? What I have to deal with is my life. I understand things are hard in the Middle East. I understand things are hard in Africa. I understand Egypt, Syria, Libya, everything that is going on. Okay? I understand, or Libya, Libya. I understand that. I really do. But I am dealing with where I live and in my reality and in my bubble. And I do the best that I can to be an honest person, to raise my daughter the way that my parents have tried to raise me. But people will assume, too, that because I'm white, that I did really good in school. I've already told you guys I graduated late from high school, and I'm not a college graduate. So every single positive stereotype about me is practically wrong, except for the fact that maybe I have gotten out of some speeding tickets. And even then, that's just sort of a joke because I've gotten plenty of tickets on my own. Ironically, all the tickets I got out of were not by white cops. So, you know what? Racial profiling is absolutely stupid. To assume that everything that you see in this room, these posters, this chair, this computer, this mic was paid for by YouTube money. Things that, the time and effort that I put into this channel to pay for this stuff. I worked my ass off. I worked as a FedEx driver, working 12 to 14 hours a day. I would come home and I could not stand up. I couldn't even take my own shoes off. When I was a kid, I had a pair of Reebok Nike pumps, and they were like one of the very first basketball shoes that were like $100 or more. They were $100, and I remember I was 8 years old, and I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I'm getting out of here. I know it's already been 13 minutes. I was 8 years old, and I really, really, really wanted a pair of those those Reebok pumps, and they had a little basketball on the tongue, and you push them, and you pump them up, and they get tight around your foot, and then to release the air, you push the button, and they go out. It was the very first pump shoe, and it was made by Reebok. At the time I wanted that, my dad was making great money. He was the vice president of a software development company, and he made absolutely fantastic money. He worked out in Newport Beach in Orange County, okay? He drove a Cadillac. I mean, everything was great. Well, I said, Dad, I want that shoe. And he says, well, you can work for it. So he put me to work in his home office, formatting disks, cleaning computer equipment, cleaning hardware, cataloging software. I mean, I was 8 doing all of that. And that's what I tell people was my very first IT job, because that's sort of what I did. So I worked enough hours from him to earn $100. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, son, okay, you did a good job, here's 20. And then tomorrow, oh, here's 30. No, $5 an hour. And when I was 8, that was a lot of money. I think that was more or thereabouts of minimum wage at the time. $5 an hour. That's 20 hours of actual time-kept work. He made me punch a time card at 8. Do you know how long 20 hours worth of real work is to an 8-year-old? So that's how I earned my shoes, and I was super proud of those shoes. And I put on those shoes, and I wore them to football practice, and I was changing my shoes, and I was putting on my cleats, and one of the coaches looks at my shoes and says, "Oh, yeah, well, rich dad had to buy his son the best shoes, has to look the best on the field, blah blah blah. It must be nice to have rich parents." Now, again, this was a junior All-American football team in the city that I'm describing, with all of the 14 minutes worth of rambling so far in this city. So right then and there, it was, oh, look, white guy buying his white kid these awesome shoes. And my dad gets in this guy's face and said, listen, asshole, this kid worked his ass off and earned the money to buy those shoes. You have a problem with that? And the guy says, yeah, something along the lines of, yeah, says the guy who drives a Cadillac. My dad knocked him out right then and there. He was one of those football dads who, my dad has a bit of a temper, by the way. I've told you guys before, he was sort of a military badass, more than 20 years in the Navy, doing ambush patrols and working with the Marines and the recons. And anyway, I'll talk more about my dad later. But he and my dad got in this fist fight right in the middle of the field. And it wasn't because of the fact that this guy said something that pissed him off. It was because of the fact that he had seen that kind of ideology had been going around just the whole time we had lived in this community. And my dad had finally had enough. He'd been getting it, and now he was seeing that his 8-year-old son, who truly worked his ass off to get these shoes that he really wanted, was being discounted by the fact that I was white. And so that's why this tweet tonight, or these tweets I put out tonight, were very angry and very close to home, because it was all originated from a stupid YouTube comment, yeah. But the fact is, you don't know the facts. Any facts you think you know about somebody that you don't really know, throw them out the window, because you really don't know shit. And the fact that you open your mouth just could make you look like a stupid douchebag.